Hi, I'm Mark Wall. I'm joined today by Elizabeth Olson. For program managers in Azure Active Directory, we're going to talk about how to govern access for employees and business partners using Azure Active Directory. So we're going to cover first, what is identity governance and how do we provide that in Azure AD? And then we'll go through 3 demos for how to use identity governance in your organization. So let's start with what is identity governance. There's lots of definitions, but I like to focus on what's important to a lot of organizations today. How does the organization effectively manage access risk and make sure their control objectives for access are met, even as those organizations are moving towards increased use of cross-org collaboration and cloud services? They need to ensure that they have the right controls ready when users are given access to these applications. So what's our approach for identity governance? First of all, we provide capabilities in Azure Active Directory, cloud-hosted features that enable the business to decide who should have access and for users to be able to request and receive the access they need. We also provide automation to enable the organization to work effectively at scale and deploy identity governance capabilities across many different projects and activities. These integrate with all the different applications that an organization might have, on-premises as well as cloud applications, with insights that help the organization ensure they're following best practices and staying secure. This is an extensible model. We have a number of APIs we'll mention at the end. We also have SDKs and partnerships with other vendors in this space to extend the reach of Azure Active Directory to more applications. So how does an organization go about getting value from Azure Active Directory for identity governance? We typically see a 3-step process. First, bring all the users that you need to manage access for into Azure Active Directory. Second, connect the applications to Azure Active Directory so you can then automate the process of giving and removing users access to those apps. Third, delegate the access lifecycle to responsible parties, business owners, resource owners, and so on, to reduce the IT burden of day-to-day administration of access for those apps. First, bringing the users into Azure Active Directory. You're probably familiar with tools like Azure Active Directory Connect for integrating from an existing Active Directory forest. We also have connections from Workday and SuccessFactors to bring workers from those systems into your Active Directory or Azure Active Directory environments as well. If you have multiple disconnected Active Directory forests, Azure AD Connect Cloud Provisioning can also bring those users from those forests into your Azure Active Directory. And for your business partners, those users can sign in either to their existing Azure Active Directory, or if they don't use Azure Active Directory, their own identity provider. And those users can maintain their existing credentials for access even to your organization's access for your apps, both on-premises and the cloud. We'll show how to do that in a moment with entitlement management. Once we have the users in Azure Active Directory, give them access to applications. For SaaS applications, we use standards like SAML, OpenID Connect, and SCIM to automatically give users access by provisioning them into the app so that they can sign in and later keep the user's representation in those apps updated as their roles change, their attributes change, or they leave the organization. For existing applications that you may have on-premises or cloud-hosted, we provide native integrations with those applications, whether they're using Active Directory or have their own directories or databases underlying them. We also have partnerships with a number of other vendors that help extend the connections from Azure Active Directory to provide single sign-on to lots of existing applications. Finally, if you're building new applications, we have SDKs and samples for many different languages, both for authentication and then also for providing provisioning through SCIM into a new application as well. Once you have the applications connected, then entitlement management helps to then delegate the process of deciding which users should have access. First, create an access package that collects all the resources and the roles that users would need in order to perform a task or be part of a project. Then you can delegate setting up the approval workflows, who should approve how long they have access to a catalog or resource owner. Once a user requests and is approved for access, they're automatically assigned and provisioned into each of those resources. And then when their assignment ends or when a reviewer denies their access assignments can be cleaned up and the user can even be deprovisioned automatically from the apps as well. So we show a couple of examples for how to use entitlement management and access reviews. We'll start with showing it for the employee scenario. How can you have employees request and receive the access they need without IT needing to be in the middle of every access decision? So let's take a look at how Contoso, a grocery chain, could use Azure AD Identity Governance to manage how employees get access to resources. So Nestor is the administrator and has set up Azure AD with all the appropriate users from their HR system, can go in and create different groups like security groups like the all employees group based on those properties that can then automatically be used to put the users into the right application access or SharePoint Online sites based on those properties. Furthermore, Nestor can also configure that Azure AD connects with all their applications, SaaS apps like Salesforce, as well as their existing AD and non-AD integrated applications. If they have AD integrated web apps, they may be using the application proxy. Let's take a look at a non-AD integrated application. So Contoso app here on the list, it supports the SAML protocol for a single sign-on. So Nestor can, of course, configure that users who are signed to that application can then be signed in when they see that app on the access panel. And furthermore, can also configure provisioning to that application, because many apps, in addition to supporting SAML, may also require that users be represented in the app's own database or directory. So let's say Contoso app has a underlying SQL database, and before it will accept a SAML token, that user with that user principal name has to match some record in the application's own database. So Nestor can then configure Azure AD to provision users from Azure AD that are signed to that application over to the applications itself, and of course configure the mapping between the schema of Azure Active Directory, all the different properties to that of the app, and can then ensure that when users are assigned to that application, like these 3 users here, those same users then are provided to the application itself. So at the application in its underlying database, we can take a look at. Here's a SQL database with 3 users represented. Here's their user principal names. So those users are able to sign in. Great. So if Nestor has a security group with the people who need access to Contoso app, then you could easily just use that. But what if he doesn't know which users should have access? Maybe this is a marketing application and Megan is the right one to decide who should have access, or the user's manager should decide. Well, Nestor can use Azure AD Identity Governance to create access packages for all the different access that people need within an organization, including access to existing applications. So within Identity Governance, Nestor could create different catalogs. Let's say there's a marketing catalog, put all the resources into that catalog, or could let people, let's say someone in marketing, own that catalog or even create their own catalogs in order to manage their own resources. So let's say there's a catalog here for marketing that has a SharePoint Online site, the application we saw earlier, an Office group. Then Nestor or someone who owns that catalog can then create an access package. And into that access package can set what it looks like, give it a friendly name, add the different resource roles that we saw earlier. So for that Office 365 group, users, if they receive the access, become a member, they become a user in that Contoso app, and the same for any other resources that they may have. Furthermore, Nestor can configure who can request access for this. So he could limit it to just people in the directory, could be limiting it to just member users, or even to specific groups of users, say people based on the existing dynamic group. He can also configure no approval, 1 or 2 stages of approval. So here he set that the manager is the approver for access to this. And if there's no manager, Megan's a fallback. He could, if he wanted to, change it to have 2 stages, manager plus a resource owner, or manager plus a security officer. Furthermore, can also configure how long people get access. So it could set that access is indefinite or expires after a period of time or on a date, and can also configure recurring access reviews. So that Megan's team can go in and regularly review every quarter everyone who has access through this access package and ensure that they still have a need for access. Once this is set up, then Nestor can share this link to the access package so that users who need access in the future can request it. What they'll do, let's say someone goes in, they'll see this view with the access package, they can go in and make a request. Now let's say Alex, he's someone in marketing, he needs access. So Alex has gone in and made a request. You can see it here in Nestor's view. Now, Nestor doesn't have to take any action because at this point, the request has gone to Megan. Megan is Alex's manager. Megan receives an email here from Azure AD, can go into Megan's My Access experience, see that pending request, see the details, any other information, the justification, and then can approve or deny it. And if that access is approved, then Alex automatically gets assigned to the group we saw earlier and to that application, can then be automatically provisioned into the application itself. So that then when Alex receives an email that his access has been assigned, he has the access package, then he'll be in that application with the right department, with the right EPN, so he can then sign into that application. And of course, in the future, if that assignment expires or if it's not reviewed, then Alex automatically loses access and can be taken out of this application automatically. So that's how Nestor can set up automatic assignment of access without needing to know who needs access by delegating that process to an approver, the user's manager, or resource owner. Next, Elizabeth is going to show how we can take this further and use this not just for employees, but also for guests and external users as well.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Olson. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft Identity team, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple scenarios where you can use Azure AD to help you govern the access of your business partners. So first, I want to talk to you about how you can manage access requests from your business partners, vendors, or other non-employees. And to do that, I want to talk to you a bit about entitlement management and then show you how you can use this in a particular scenario. So entitlement management is a really powerful tool that can help you streamline onboarding and management of access over time. Just like you can use entitlement management for your employee access, you can also use it for your guest access and group together resources that your external users might need, like a set of groups, apps, teams, or SharePoint Online sites, and bring them together in a single package that partners can request and be onboarded to in an automated way. You can scope that to your known partners that you've configured already, or open it up to anyone in the world to sign up. And then you can also configure expiration or regular access reviews to make sure that that access doesn't persist over time longer than it needs to when that partner stops being relevant to your particular need here. You can choose to delegate the approval to either someone else in your organization or even someone in the partner organization, which can be really powerful, especially in large partnerships where you might not know everyone at the partner organization who needs access to your resources. So you can delegate that to someone who's more equipped to answer those decisions. And to help you make decisions on who should be approved for access, we're excited to introduce a new feature around adding custom questions to the access package request workflow so that you can further clarify if this is the right person or the right access that that person should have by adding some custom questions to help you make those decisions. So with that, let me jump right in and show you how it works. So here we have Fen's inbox, and Fen works at Fabricam, who's been just started onboarding as a supplier for Contoso, our grocery chain that we talked about in the first demo. And so Fen has this email from someone from Contoso, Patty, and Patty is inviting her to go to a link to sign up as a supplier. So she'll click this link, and here she'll go to the My Access experience that's part of entitlement management. And she'll see that there's a particular access package she's being asked to sign up to. She can request that access. And it's easy for her to say that she's been working with Patty and that she works in the North American region. And these are the custom questions that Contoso has configured as part of this access package to make sure that it's the right person signing up and the right package that they're signing up to. And so this will help the approver on the other side. If they need to ask more questions about this person, they can reach out to somebody at the company. Or if they need to make sure it's the right package, they can get that information. And then for business justification, I'm a new supplier, and then she will submit that. And so now that that's been submitted, that automatically notifies the approvers that this request is there, and they'll review the information she's provided and decide whether or not she should have that access. So now we'll switch over to Patty's inbox, and Patty works at Contoso. She is in charge of onboarding people to the North American region. And you can see that she just got an email asking her to approve a request. And so she can see that there was a request from Fen, and she has the choice to approve or deny. So she'll click the link, and that will bring her into the My Access experience again, where she can see the request from Fen here and what she's requested access to. And if she wants, she can dig into those details of that request to see that who was requesting it, what they wanted. She can confirm that it was the North America package. And she can also see the justification that Fen wrote, as well as the answers to the questions. And so here she can see that Fen put Patty down. And since this is Patty and she knows who Fen is, that makes sense. And she can see that she is working in North America, and that makes sense because this is the North American package. So everything looks great. If she wanted to, she can review what the resources as part of this access package are, but everything looks good. So she'll just say, I've approved Fen. And then as soon as that approval is recorded, that's going to kick off that process to provision Fen for all of the resources that she needs, like the team and the app that are part of this package, so that Patty can go straight over to Teams and then start interacting with Fen there. So she can start typing Fen's name, and she can see that Fen is provisioned right away. She can say, "Welcome to Contoso. Looking forward to working with you." So that was a really easy and streamlined way for Patty to onboard Fen and get her access to the resources she needed in a very streamlined way that also included all the events they needed for auditing later if they'd ever needed to be audited. All right, so now that I've showed you how you can use entitlement management to onboard your partners to a structured set of resources, I want to talk to you about how you might want to handle more ad hoc collaboration. So you might have a lot of guests that have been invited through SharePoint or through Teams or Power BI, and they didn't go through the entitlement management process for onboarding because they just needed access to one quick thing. But you still want to make sure that they still need access over time, and maybe get rid of their accounts when they just don't need access to any of your resources. And to do that, we have this powerful feature called access reviews that can enable you to regularly review the access that your guests have, and even choose to remove that access when it's no longer needed. Access reviews are really flexible. They can be used again for employees or for guest access. So you can use them wherever you need to make sure that only the right people have access to a particular resource. And they have really flexible controls for scoping and timing and approval that you can assign to them. And I also want to highlight a new preview that we have where you can also choose to disable and delete guest accounts if they are denied as part of the access review. So that can be really powerful if you have a large number of guest users and you're not quite sure who should be part of your organization anymore. This can allow you to sort through those users and get rid of the ones you don't need. And let me show you how that works. So here we're returning to Contoso again. And we're here as an admin in Contoso and wanting to set up an access review to regularly review all of the guest users in the directory, regardless of how they came in. And so whether they came in through SharePoint or Teams or entitlement management or whatever else, we just want to make sure that every single guest user is regularly reviewed every quarter to make sure that they still need access to the Contoso directory. And so to do that, I'm going to start by creating a group that I already created. And this is just a dynamic group that includes all guest users in the directory. So I've got that. And since I've created that group, I also want to adjust my external identity settings. By default, guests are unable to read the directory, but they can see people in the same group as them. And since I've just put all of my guest users into the same group, I might want to restrict their access just a little bit more so they can't even see the other users in the group. And so that's something that you should consider if you're going to create this all guests group. You probably want to adjust your guest user visibility a little bit more as well. So I'll save that. And then I'm going to go to identity governance and create an access package that uses, create an access review that uses that group to scope who should be reviewed. So I'll create this. I'll call it guest access. And I just want to run this quarterly. Every quarter, I want all of my guests to be reviewed. And then I'm going to review the members of a group. And the group I'm going to select is that guest users group. And the reviewers, I want to be each user, especially when you have maybe 10,000 or 100,000 guest users. It's just not scalable to have just one person or a few people review each of those users. And so just having the users themselves attest whether or not they still need the resources can go a long way towards cleaning up outstanding access. And then if you feel the need to get further reviews, you can have another review stage after that reviews the people that are left. Now, I can choose what happens upon completion and either choose not to do anything automatically, in which case I'll just get a report that I can take action on. Or in this case, I want to make this automatic. And if somebody, and when the review's done, I want the action to happen automatically without me having to think about it. And so if the users don't respond, I can choose to either let them keep their access, remove their access, or I can take the recommendations of the system, which are based on whether or not the user has signed in the last 30 days. So I can assume that if they're still signing in and still working with my resources, they probably still need them. If they're not, then they probably can lose that access. And so if they're denied based on this review, then I want to block them from signing in for 30 days, and then I'm just going to remove their account altogether. And if they need more access, then they can sign up again. And then in terms of advanced settings, I definitely want them to tell me why they still need their access. I definitely want to let them know that this is ongoing and remind them if they haven't reviewed. But I also want to warn them that they need to pay attention to this, because if they don't, then they're going to lose their access. So I'll just kick that off. And now under the covers, what that's doing is that's enumerating all the users in that group. It's sending them all an email, letting them know that they have a review to complete, and then things are ready to go. So with that, I'm going to switch over to Fen. And since Fen is one of the guests in my directory, Fen is going to get a notification telling her that she needs to complete this review. And then she'll be able to reattest that she still needs that access and keep it because that's how the review is set up. So here you can see that she's got that email, and she can see that there's a notice, please respond so you don't lose access. She definitely doesn't want to lose access because she's still very active with the Contoso company. She wants to make sure they continue to be a supplier. And so, do you still need access as a guest user? Yes. I'm still working as a supplier for Contoso. She'll submit that. And then that'll allow her to keep her access until the next access review runs around, and she'll go through the same process again. So now that I showed you how to use entitlement management and access reviews to handle a couple really powerful scenarios that involve your partners, I'm going to switch back to Mark, and he's going to review the things we told you and talk to you about a couple other features you might be interested in. Thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Now, we've seen only some of the demos today, the capabilities in Azure Active Directory for identity governance. In addition to the request, approval, provisioning we saw for employees and guests, there are many other features, and you can take a look at the identity governance link at the top of the screen to find out more about privileged identity management, reporting, auditing, and many other features of Azure Active Directory. Now, if you want to get started using these, I recommend starting by first making sure you have the right users in Azure Active Directory. If you're using Workday or SuccessFactors, you can connect these HR systems with your Azure Active Directory automatically so that as new employees join, they get accounts in Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. And as their roles change, those accounts get updated automatically so that you do not have unnecessary accounts or accounts that have out-of-date properties in your directory. If you have other Active Directories, perhaps from a merger or acquisition beyond your own on-premises Active Directory, you can also connect those Active Directory for us as well to your Azure AD using Azure AD Connect Cloud Provisioning. So again, you have a consistent view of who should have access, and you don't end up creating duplicate Active Directory or Azure Active Directory accounts for those employees. Now, if you have business partners and they have their own Azure Active Directory, well, they can sign in as you invite them in or give them access to entitlement management with their existing credentials. If you have partners that aren't using Azure Active Directory, they have their own identity provider, you can connect to those identity providers as well through direct federation so that those partners sign in with their existing credentials, so you don't have to give duplicate credentials for your partner users either. Now, once you have your users in your Azure Active Directory, both for your employees, those from acquired companies, or from business partners, then you can give those users access to the applications they need. If you have on-premises AD-based applications, you can use the application proxy so that users can sign in and be automatically logged into on-premises apps without needing to go through a VPN. If you're building new applications, we have SDKs for adding authentication to those apps. We also have code to use SCIM for automating provisioning and deprovisioning into your apps as well. And if you have existing on-premises apps, check out how you can also then provide provisioning to existing apps using their provisioning protocols in addition to the new standards like SCIM. Once you have your apps connected to Azure Active Directory, then you can use the features we showed here today, like entitlement management and access reviews, to further reduce the IT burden of ensuring users have the right access at the right time. You can do that through the Azure portal. You can also orchestrate setting up these and many of the other Azure Active Directory features using the Microsoft Graph API. And then once users have access and are being provisioned and have their access regularly reviewed, you can monitor their progress using the Azure Monitor feature in order to make sure that users are getting access at an appropriate time and have your own reports, as well as our own built-in reports to see which users are getting access, how they're getting access, who is approved, and so on. So check out these links and take a look also at some of the other videos that we have that show more of the capabilities for identity governance for your employees, guests, business partners, and everyone who needs access to your resources. Thank you.